Hello everybody, welcome back. It's been a while and I apologise for that. It's just been busy with the house renovations and vehicle problems, clutching my truck and all that sort of stuff. And to be honest, by the end of the autumn I was pretty much gardened out. I needed a break, and it's now end of January, so it's time to start thinking about getting things going again. And I'm a bit behind the times, I suppose, in that a lot of people will probably have sowed their onions and things like that by now, but there's still plenty of time, and that's something I'm going to do later in the video. But I thought the first thing I should do today is get the rest of the parsnips out of the ground that I sowed last March. These ones were sown last March directly in the ground, and these are Gladiator and some reasonable parsnips there. So before they sit in the ground too long, thought I'd get them out, get them cleaned up, peeled, chopped, and get them into the freezer, and then this bed can be for sprinkling a compost on it, ready for this year's plantings. And I'll probably there's no signs of any disease or anything like that in these, so I shall probably sow parsnips here again. It's worked well last year. There's obviously no disease there, so why not? Crop rotation isn't something that I worry too much about, unless there's signs that previous year's crops were suffering from a particular pest or disease. So that's that, and I think what I need to do later in this video as well is get some lettuce sown, and probably some leeks as well. So I think I'll do onions, leeks and some lettuce stroke salad leaves today. Get those growing. I'm not going to bother with chillies and peppers this year, purely because I'm a little bit late starting. I mean, I could still do it. I've got a heated propagator, I could get them going, but the problem is in the house at the moment, because we're renovating it, we're running out of sockets. Because I'm rewiring the rooms as I go, we're coming to the last sort of room now, which means we're running on minimal sockets in the house until I switch all the circuits over and get the electrician in to test it all. So that's another reason. And the other reason is, for those of you that have been following the channel for a while, you'll know that last year I started a lot of my seedlings and young plants in the garden room, as we call it, which is just a little conservatory on the back of the house. This year, because of the renovation work, that room is actually our temporary kitchen. So although I've probably got a bit of space on some of the windowsills just to put some pots and trays with seedlings in, I haven't got the space I did last year to get a really early start. So this year we're going to have some sowings now and throughout February, but a lot of it I'm going to have to go back to the old method where we'd perhaps have a seed bed, a seedling bed, where we bring things on, protect them from the weather, and then transplant them out. And that's kind of an old school way of doing it. That's a nice thing to practice again. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I've got a hell of a lot of tidying up to do in this garden. The weeds have taken over even since sort of November time. But what I'll do is I'll stop rabbiting, turn the camera around, and I'll show you around the plot so you can see what I'm up against. So it's a little bit breezy, so I apologise if there's any wind noise. But these three beds, this one and the one at the end, I tidied up at the end of last year, sort of in the autumn time. So other than a little bit of weeding and a rake over, they're ready for the new sowings, etc. This one you've just seen me digging the parsnips out. Quite pleased with those actually. And then along here, this is where I grew leeks last year. So that's already been topped off with compost. That needs a bit of a tidy up and then that's good to go. That probably needs a bit of compost in it and a weed. Same with that one. All this is coffee grounds. There must be 30 or 40 kilograms of coffee grounds there, which I need to get added into the compost, but the compost is a big job on its own, which I'll explain in a minute. This is where I grew my garlic last year, and I thought I'd got them all out, but as you can see, I missed some. There's definitely some volunteers there, so I think I'm just going to leave them, let them do their thing this year. And I did the ones that I saved from this bed last year, I put in the middle bed there, and they're growing. But these I must have missed, so I'm going to leave them, let them do their thing, and then interplant this bed with, I don't know, I might put some baby carrots in there. You know, the ones that grow small and short, not long. And yeah, because the garlic will help keep the carrot fly away. Not that we had a problem with that last year. In that bed I had salad last year. That just needs weed, top off with some compost, and that's good to go. Pots need sorting out. My old fuchsia. Let's see how that gets on this year. Parsley, mince, and there's a few other pots about as well. This is some of the old plumbing that's come out of the house. That'll get cut up and weighed in at some point. Shredding to do for brown material for compost. And then these two beds really need a massive weed, level off, compost on, etc. And that bed in the middle up there. These beds are where I grew potatoes last year. I had new potatoes in here, I had Charlotte in here, and I had Maris pipe and pink fir apple in there. Still got celeriac in here. I shouldn't imagine it's going to be much good. I would imagine the slugs have got into it. You have to get a spade or something for that. But yeah, you can see where the slugs have got in there. And this is celery, which we just never got round to eating. Such a shame, really. That all needs to go in the compost. And then this bed I've made a start on. I did weed it at the back end of last year. This is where I grew all the brassicas last year. Half finished it with compost on the top, as you can see. So that needs finishing. This bed needs sorting out. Got some kale there, which I don't think has grown much since I actually planted it, so that didn't work out. So all this is going to have to be weeded. Thank you to everybody that told me what this weed is on the last video. Creeping buttercup. Absolute nightmare. It's everywhere. There's a pak choi from last year. I think that's had it. That'll be going in the compost, I think. There's a few onions here that have gone through the winter, or part of the winter. I'll take those up the house. They're a bit soft, but I'm sure they'll be fine. There's another one that does look very soft. Actually, some more there. We're still eating onions from last year. Got them in a basket in the kitchen. That's a nice one. Okay, and these are the Swedes, which really didn't work out. They just need to go in the compost. Hard, woody, didn't really, I probably let them go too far before I even noticed, but never mind. I think those onions are ones that are I think they were put in really late. I can't remember why now, but I'm going to leave those. They're still growing, or trying to. Got no, maybe starting to form some buds on the apple tree. And we've got a plum tree down in that corner, which I forgot to prune last year, so that's got to be done. But yeah, a lot of work to do out here to get it back up to standard, and maybe later in the summer we'll be able to start developing the upper plot up there, but as you can see it's full of building materials and what have you. So compost, that's horrendous. We seem to have ended up with lots of compost piles. So there's this pile which I did cover over way back in last year, and so I think what's under here will be pretty good once I get in there and sort it out. This one again needs a good sort out. This one probably further down will be pretty good compost with a sort out and a sieve and what have you. And then this one we've just continued using, so that's got to be, I think we just need to finish that one off, get it topped right up. But I think lower down it is actually fairly good compost, so that's going to be a good few hours of shoveling and digging and sorting stuff. And we have got another compost heap over here which should have been sorted out last year. That was right up to this level, to the block, and it's now only one block deep really, so that should be well, ready to go with a bit of a sieve. So lots of work to do, and now the weather's improved a little bit, I can perhaps spend some time out here between work and the house. It's been so windy, isn't it? Really windy. I'm amazed the fence is still up. Oh, on the fence, the developers have compensated us for the damage, inconveniences of their activities, etc. So all quiet on the western front at the moment. Okay, so I've retired to the shed because it is a bit chilly outside. The wind is creating a bit of wind chill, so I've dug out my seed box, where I keep all my seeds, and all I do is I just make cardboard dividers just to divide up the different things. It just makes it easy to find stuff. By the end of the season this will be all chaos, it'll be all mixed up, because I have a habit of taking things out and not putting them back where they should be, but I have to go through it at the beginning of every year to reorganise it. I've got quite a lot of seeds that are, I'm not going to say out of date, because I don't believe that seeds ever go out of date. What happens is, the older they become, the less likely they are to germinate. So, if you had a packet of seeds that say 3 years old and you sow 10, only 3 or 4 might come up. But that doesn't mean to say that they're good, so to speak. So I'm going to do a mixture of new packets and old packets this year to try and use up some of the old ones, knowing that they probably won't all germinate, but it's better than throwing them away. So what I'm going to sow is onion. So I'm going to go with the old stock favourite, Ailsa Craig. So this is a new packet that I bought a couple of weeks ago with the intention of sowing them a couple of weeks ago, but never got around to it. So the expiry date on these is, or sow by date is what it is 2025. So I'm going to sow this packet, all of this packet, to kind of ensure that I get a reasonable germination percentage wise, and then I'm also going to sow another complete packet of Ailsa Craig with an expiry or a sow by date of December 22. I would say at least 50% of these will germinate anyway, even though the date on the packet is gone. You know, whether they do this to make you buy more seeds, you throw out the old ones and buy new ones, or whether it is a genuine thing, I don't know. I think, like I say, I would expect at least 50% of these to germinate, probably much more. But either way, I'm going to sow both packets. We like onions, we eat a lot of onions, they store really easy. I find them very easy to grow. I always seem to do quite well with onions, so I'm going to sow 2 of those. I'm going to sow Musselburgh leeks. Again, I'm going to do a new in-date packet, and I'm going to do probably half what's left from an old packet with an sow by of 23. So these are only sort of last year's, if you like. I'm going to so I said earlier on in the video I wasn't going to do peppers and chillies, and then Julie came down and she said, "What are you sowing?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to do peppers and chillies this year. We've still got half a drawer in the freezer full from last year of chillies." And she said, "Well, we've eaten all the peppers and I like peppers, so I am going to do them this year." It's a little bit late, but you know, it's not a problem. As long as we get a nice sort of back end to the summer, we'll be fine. Because I am growing outside, I still haven't got the cover on the polytunnel, as you've seen. So I'm going to sow the remainder of the Sweet Amy yellow bell peppers that I grew last year, which were very nice. And I'm going to sow the remainder of the mixed packet of chilies that I grew last year. So I have no idea what these are. They were all very nice, some hotter than others, but yeah, we've been putting them in curries and chilies and all sorts of stuff. So they'll be getting sown and they'll be going into a heated propagator, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a moment. And the one thing I haven't got out of my seed box yet is lettuce. Let me find. So in the lettuce section I've got all of these seeds. So this is an open pack, and these are the mixed salad leaves, so we like those. I'm going to put some of those in, and then we have an open pack of iceberg which we also like, so I'll put those in. Not too many to start with, because with lettuce I try to do successional sowing, so every sort of 3 weeks I'll sow some more. This is for the early stuff, to try and get them earlier in the year rather than later. And lettuce are pretty hardy, so they don't mind the cold too much, so they'll be fine in the conservatory, which is unheated on the windowsill, and within 10 days, 2 weeks, they'll be germinating, I would imagine. So the next thing I need to do is knock up some seedling mix, so I'll show you what I'm going to do there. So when it comes to sowing seeds, it's important to remember that the seed itself has all the fuel, all the energy that the seedling needs to get established. So that means putting some roots down, putting the stem up with a couple of leaves, and probably enough energy to start growing some adult leaves as well. At that point, the plant then probably needs a little bit of extra nutrition from either compost, other organic matter, a fertilizer of some sort. So I don't bother going out and buying expensive bags of seedling compost. All I ever use is multi-purpose compost, either my own or shop bought, and I just mix in a bit of vermiculite with that, so just to aerate the soil a bit, stop it clumping together, drying out and then cracking, etc. Excuse me. So rather than rush off and get some compost from a bag that I might have in the garden or the shop, I'm going to use last year's compost that I grew potatoes in. In fact, this bucket is actually got, I'll find you one. I think in here we have, if I can find one, there's one. King Edward from last year, stored in the compost, and we're still munching our way through those. And also the pink for apple, there's a bucket behind me with those in. So I'm just going to get my mixing tray and use this compost. Just pull out any sticks, stuff like that. There's a potato, don't want that in there. That'll do. And then on top of that, I'm going to put some vermiculite. Sounds like it might be full of water. I don't have a set formula for this. I just do what looks right, feels right, and then I just mix it up. And all the vermiculite does is it creates little air pockets in the compost and helps for it to stop drying out quite so quick and cracking. Compost goes hard and then your plants struggle to develop a root system and what have you. So that'll do. As a potting mix, that'll be absolutely fine. Oh, potting mix, there's seedling mix. So I'm going to use these seed trays, and the reason I'm going to use these is I have the lids and the little LED lights for things like the peppers and that, which probably going to need a bit more light, although we have worked out that we have a south facing window which we can use upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and we can also get a power supply to that for the heated propagator for the peppers and chillis. So, but I'm going to do them in here anyway, just in case I need to give them a bit more light. And it's literally just firm it down a little bit. This compost is quite damp, so they're not going to need much of water. And I'll just fill it to about, I don't know, half an inch and 3/4 of an inch below the surface. And then we'll go with these mixed chillies. So I'm going to put all of this in now. There's not that many in here. And then just cover them with about, I don't know, 5mm or so, 8mm of compost. And then I've got my labels written out. So mixed chillies, that's the first tray done. So next, we shall go with Sweet Amy bell peppers. Again, I don't think there's many in here, but I think this year we're going to focus more on things like onion, potato, parsnip, carrots, swede, the things that we tend to gravitate to more when we're cooking a meal. There wasn't very many in there at all. Spread those out a bit. So, I mean, I think there's about 5 or 6 seeds there. So I may only get 2 or 3 come up, but that's okay. I suppose I could go to the gut centre and get some more bell peppers seeds. So, Sweet Amy, that's that. Okay, and then in here I'm going to do the onions. Now one thing I'll just mention on this. Last year I sowed the onions, and when they came up and started to grow 2 leaves, I pricked them out, put them into modules, and in doing so I lost about 10 to 15% of the seedlings just through transplanting them. So this year I'm not, and I was thinking, why did I do that? Probably because I've seen other people doing it and what have you. And I thought, why? Because if you think of leeks, which same family, allium family, we don't do that, do we really? We tend to sow them in a pot, let them come on, and then we split them up as we plant them out. And I thought, well, I'm just going to do exactly the same method this year with the onions. What's the point in potting them on and risking losing some of the crop? So I'm going to do exactly that this year. So on to Craig. And I'm going to put the whole packet in here, which will be a lot in a small space, but trying to get them evenly sown, which is difficult. And again, cover them over. Craig, and I've got that half packet-ish, oh no, it's a full packet, so another full packet of Elsa Craig to go in as well. Now when it comes to onions, as I've said, we do like onions, we eat a lot of onions, they store well, so what we might do is actually plant some sets as well in March as a backup. I normally plant sets as well as sowing my own. So, and the thing is, most people like onions, you can always give some away. If you've got too many, take them to a food bank even, you know, the way the world is. So let's do another packet. And we're still eating last year's onions, we've still got them in the kitchen. Does anybody else struggle with these, or is it just me? There we go. You've got to remember, with the end of February now, it's probably going to take these a couple of weeks to start germinating. I'd be planting these out March time anyway, so we're only a month, 6 weeks before I'd be planting these out. So by the time these start to become really crowded in the trays, they'll be getting put out. So I've seen on Facebook and YouTube and what have you, a lot of people having their polytunnels and sheds and greenhouses and everything destroyed by the wind, and it's terrible really. People put so much time and effort into their gardens and their allotments, and that happens. I'm kind of pleased I didn't cover the polytunnel last year, but I'm going to have to get around to it at some point this year. It's not going to be in the spring, I don't think, because I've still got all the reinforcing bars and everything to put in and make. But hopefully this year in the autumn I'll get around to that. Okay, so there's 2 trays of Elsa Craig onions. And then we're going to do Musselburgh leeks. Last year I left the leeks in the ground too long. We didn't harvest them in time and they went really woody, even to the point when you cook them and they were sharp. They were like when you were trying to swallow them. So definitely need to harvest them earlier this year. It's important you label up your leeks and your onions, because I can't tell the difference between the seeds or the seedlings, to be honest, until they get to a certain size. So yeah, a bit like brassicas seeds, they all look very, very similar. Musselburgh, and then we have another one of those as well. Have to make up some more seedling mix. It's nice to be sowing things again. To start thinking where I'm going to plant things out, what beds I'm going to use this year, and like I said, hopefully later in the year we might start getting some work done on the upper plot will give you more growing space. We need to get a big chest freezer so that we can grow more, store more. We've literally just finished eating all of the carrots that we grew last year. We're still eating the potatoes, we're still eating the onions, we've still got rhubarb in the freezer, peppers, chillis. Yeah, we did quite well even in the small-ish bit of the garden that we're using. So we just need to improve on it this year. So there's the leeks. Lettuce. I'm going to have to knock up a bit more stuff. That should do. If you want to get something to wick up, if you go on Amazon, it's reasonably cheap on there. It does make a hell of a difference, I think, to the ability of your seedlings to grow decent roots and get off to a good start. It doesn't add any nutrition or anything like that to the soil, it's just helps keep it loose, aerated. So I'm not going to go mad with the lettuce, salad leaves. Just going to put 2 rows, one of each. Go that way. I need to write some labels for these as well. Mixed salad. I'll go that way. One label for 2. And iceberg that way. Mixed salad that way, iceberg that way. So I just want to put a nice thinly, if I can, spaced row of iceberg. And the same with the mixed salad leaves. And like I say, in another 3 weeks or so, I'll be sowing some more anyway. Because the problem is, if you sow a lot at this time of year, you're going to suddenly end up with a massive amount of lettuce to eat in April. So April, May, depending on where you live and all the rest of it. And even there's probably 20 of each. So that's when they actually start growing, there's quite a lot. Although with the mixed salad leaves, these ones, you can just take the outer leaves and leave the plant to grow. So you probably need less of these than you would if you were trying to grow an iceberg that you're going to harvest in one go. But in all honesty, lettuce is lettuce. It's nice to have as a garnish or a salad, or in a sandwich. But if you don't eat it all, it's not the end of the world. It's more stuff to go in the compost. So I get a bit more precious when it's things that take a longer time to grow or harder to grow, you know, like chillies and peppers and tomatoes and things like that. They're not things I want to be throwing on the compost if I can avoid it. So that's that. So there's the lettuce. Right there, take that out of the way. And now what I've got to do is set up the heated propagator. And all this does, you plug it in and it raises the temperature enough for the things like chilies and peppers, the harder to germinate crops, just enough to get them germinated. Once they're germinated, then as long as you keep them above say 10-12 degrees, they will be okay, but you won't germinate them like that. They need to be further up, you know, sort of 20ish. So I'll put those two trays in there. Sweet Amy and mixed chilies. Put the lid on. That will go up to the house and get plugged in. I'll give that a clean so they get a bit more light when they germinate. And we'll put that on the south facing window, plugged in, along with these others on the south facing window. And in a couple of weeks we'll have some seedlings to pot on and prick out and look after. Okay everyone, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's great to be back out in the garden and sowing some seeds again, and yeah, really looking forward to the season. Julie's out here now weeding that bed over there, and team effort, get it ready for the spring. So thank you very much. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, and I'll see you on the next one.